how do you put these deals together is, you start with an option, a lease, separate deal, a lease that you're all familiar with, only you're leasing the property from the owner. And the option is a separate option with the owner, what's got the price, how many years or months it goes, what your credits are. So there's a few more things to negotiate and discuss in a lease purchase than there are with just the purchase. You go say, Steve, it's $200,000, 10 down, close in 30 days. That's about all there is to talk about, the closing date and how much cash. Option has more moving parts and there's more things to discuss. And on my home, a good candidate, if you want to live above your means and live in a more house than you should be affording, is to get it on a lease option. About a 4-bedroom pool home that, if they're vacant, means that the occupant, the owner, has found somewhere else to live and he doesn't need to sell that house the day before he can go somewhere else. So he already found another place to live. This fellow had bought a mobile home park in Alabama, and he so he was paying pool service and lawn service and keeping the air conditioning on, and he was motivated, not distressed actually, but he was motivated to do some kind of deal. And a realtor, I actually got realtors working for me to find me these deals because they would get paid at the closing. And this lady found me this deal, and then she let me talk to the guy. The fellow was motivated, and he went, he got a certain amount down, which paid the realtor, paid closing costs. I couldn't find people that would do an option deal where they had to write a check at the closing. I found out you had to put enough money on the table to pay the closing costs, pay a realtor if one was involved, and a few grand for the other guy. So this seminars and that said you can get this for $100. You get a $500,000 house for $100,000 option money. I could never find that kind of deal. I always had to put something that resembled real money on the table. But he was happy enough, relieved him of the maintenance, relieved him of the management, he didn't want any more tenants. His outflow of all these services, he got a monthly check. He got checks on for a 12 and some year basis, and he didn't give up the deed. You say, why would he? I'll tell you all about the benefits that we get. He didn't give away the property yet. So if I didn't perform, I didn't show up, I didn't come to the closing, I got left town, had a stroke, he didn't have to try to find me. He didn't have to foreclose. He never gave up the deed in the first place. So it's doable with people, and in the book I'll list why would sellers do that. And the list is formidable for why sellers will do that, to get away from the maintenance and the management and the hassle. And most amateur tenants think that we're all loony to be, when they've got an accidental landlord because they just hate it and they're not good at it, they don't screen tenants right, they get bad tenants. So, I think most people here and most investors find out if you learn how to handle the management game and deal with tenants like I have, they buy houses for you. Now, those tenants have bought all those houses, they're free and clear. A lot of them have been free and clear for 15 years. And I didn't pay any of those payments, they paid them. So you can do the same thing. And so the lease option, lease purchase seller is everything's on the table. There's no tricks. You don't want to, you're not dealing or tricking anybody. It's all eyes open deal, and their list of benefits is about as long as our list of benefits. Of getting the house is vacant, they get paid. You pay the mortgage payment, whether it's vacant or not, and you need a little a reserve to be able to do that. So they're happy to get out of that. Paying those bills, the turnover, going in, and the people that get bad tenants and go in for 3 months, 6 months, do the carpeting, patch up the nail holes. There's cats and dogs, and we've probably all seen that. They get really weary real fast, and they are negotiable, and not giving up the deed is a powerful negotiating strategy. So with doing lots of these, I've got some buzzwords, some strategies, a lot of checklists of how you do your math to make sure you're okay in the deal. That it's fair enough, that you're getting compensated for your time, for your management, and at the end of the day, if you just have a couple of $100 rent margin, that's okay to pay your bills. If you're getting another $200 or $300 in buy down on various mortgages, plus the tax benefits, it gets to be pretty strong. It gets to be a pretty good deal, which is tantamount to owning the property, I say, without the risk. So these items that, how you do it and the documents, and there's one other thing, there's several other parts before we start talking about some questions, is that I would make an escrow and get, and I would start by saying to Steve that I'm going to put a quitclaim deed here in the file, Steve, in case I don't perform, I'm among the missing, that I have a cloud on your title because I have a option recorded. And so to clear that deck, if something happens, I don't perform, it doesn't mess up your title. And we'll have these other documents held by an escrow company or an attorney. And the other side of the coin is Steve's going to sign a deed and have it witnessed and notarized, and that's going to be in escrow. I don't want to be having a discussion with Steve's son 6 or 8 years from now that Steve's not on the earth anymore, and the son said, well, this was a $200,000 deal, but now the house is worth $400,000. I'm not signing this. I'm not giving you deed. You took advantage of my dad. You don't want to have that discussion. We've seen properties double over a period of time. So this escrow has all the documents, and if he's agreed to carry back, we'll have the note. I'll sign the note. We'll have a deed of trust ready to record, and that we never have to talk again. There's no further negotiation unless it gets better for me. The guy said, well, can we talk as this Ben did? He'd send me notes and say, Jack, could we settle up early? Could we settle up sooner? And I said, well, I'm not able to do that right now, Ben. I wasn't able to do it for 12 years. And I found that towards the end, that I was going to owe him about $25,000 in 12 months, and I thought, well, here's a time that I could probably get a discount if I called him, because if I waited another 6 or 8 months, he would get all the money. Okay, so what would you offer somebody that you owe a certain amount of money a year from now? And I thought what I would take, what would be interest to me, and I figured about 75% if you were going to owe me $25,000. So I called him up and I said, I have $17,827.52 in the bank. And he said, send it. Okay. I didn't want to get in a haggle with him back and forth. We had a good relationship. So I took about 76% and some odd pennies. And that was close enough. I would do the same thing if Steve owed me $25,000 a year from now. I'd take $17,500 now because I can do something with it. I can pay off higher debt, higher interest debt. I can put it out on the street and loan it hard money. So I thought, how would I look at that? And if I said 10, he'd say, I'll wait. Or you said 10 to me. I'll wait a year because I'll get 25. And if I said 23, I probably left something on the table. I probably could have done better. So I just by myself and trying to figure out. I talked to Jack Miller and Pete about that, and we kind of came up, well, what would work for me? I figured he had the same kind of logic situation that I had. So we talked about the tenant, the contract for option. That's I found very useful, and for less maintenance, less turnover. And when we talk about land trusts, if you get into land trusts, these things do overlap and kind of mix and match. You change real estate to personal property, and now you can operate in a slightly different mode. You can have a contract for the beneficial interest, and that's a contract for personal property, and it's not that agreement for deed that we talked about. You get an agreement for deed, you're the owner today, and I have to foreclose. I need a foreclosure. If you have something that looks like an agreement for deed, but it's for the beneficial interest of a land trust, that's a contract for personal property. And it's like a car title or car payment. You have no rights until you make all the payments. That's the difference in buying a personal property on a contract versus buying real estate. So you make one payment on an agreement for deed, and if you don't pay anymore, I have to go to court and foreclose you. Now, California is a better state. Florida is a mortgage state, and it can take a year. I spent a year in court where the guy declared bankruptcy and he switched and all that, and that's another expensive seminar. So by changing your operating system to personal property, you can sell. We buy and sell in Burger King. You don't need witnesses and notaries. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we get into land trust, how about lease option? Lease purchase, I call the acquiring property on an option. A tenant lease option is for a contract for option for the tenant. Any general questions about that, or is it doable or not doable? Yes, sir.
I have trouble buying an escrow company, willing to do for 5 years, escrow for 5 years.
Yeah, okay, the question is, or the statement, and that's valid, is he says, I have a trouble finding an escrow company to escrow that for 5 years, and that can be. I have found some, but I also find an attorney will do that. So, attorney will have a file. I mean, there's candidates that do that, okay? And one of them is an attorney, maybe a CPA. He has a file, an envelope, and it says, do not open till 2016. He doesn't have to do anything. You just have to show up. I have to show up by the last day with a check for $10,000, cashier's check, sends to the owner, and then records my deed. Okay, that's what's in the escrow. So you can find some people to do it. If an escrow company is not the person, I'd try an attorney. I'd try other people, maybe a disinterested third party. So, yes, sir.
Jack, you do that if you hold the deed, the notarized deed in that escrow or with the attorney for however many years,
Yeah.
5 years. Do you have to get those deeds
No.
notarized that day?
No, the question is there such a thing as a stale deed? And the answer is no. The answer is no. 20 years, no. No, it's valid, it's signed and witnessed in that day, and two witnesses. Jack Fullerton was telling they may have adjusted the law in California where maybe you don't need 2 witnesses anymore, but whatever it is, it's a valid deed, it's recordable, okay? So you can find that, and that's, yeah.
Well, maybe recordable, but you can't get title insurance.
Yes, yeah, done, yeah. The stale deed thing is kind of a realtor myth that somebody made up somewhere along the line. Any other kind of generic questions about leases and options? And it's a good tool, and you can use it. Should be in your toolkit, and when you can find them, you should. I would say I always ask, can't always find them.